Hello and welcome to the Sunset Safari. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Tebs on camera, James and Andrew on the other vehicle, and Louise and Jerry in final control. And we are with the Queen of Juma, who is looking very, very lazy at the moment. She returned to eat that last of a steenbok leg that was left in the tree. And she's now resting atop the termite mound. So she probably went off to find some water for a drink. And this morning, that's when we came past her, she wasn't here, and James and Tebs, who is on a leopard spotting streak, spotted her. So we had a nice view of hyena feet yesterday at the den. So we asked Tebs to zoom in tight on the bottom of her pad. And you can see there that little 3 lobes as opposed to the 2 lobes of a hyena. So I don't think she's going to be doing too much. We will spend a little bit of time here before heading out to see what else we can find. And we'll definitely come back before it gets cooler, hoping she will move towards the treehouse waterhole for a drink, or she could head towards quarantine, or she might surprise us all and go an area we don't think she's going to go to. But a nice sunny day, the sun is out, it's hot, and unfortunately for us, when it's hot, as you can see probably buzzing around my head, there are a few different species of insects, some worse than others, all of them highly annoying. I'm going to see if I can find one of these little guys. The tiny little ones are stingless bees, and they're trying to drink my sweat, all the moisture in my eye. So they can be very frustrating, and the problem with them is you can't squish them, because if you squish them, they release a pheromone that lets all the others know that there must be moisture there if you're squishing them. So they then come en masse. So that is the one that I just, which is more irritating for me, is that little fly that looks almost exactly the same as a house fly, oh, excuse me, called a stable fly, which is the same fly that bites the lions and leopards' ears, and recently they've taken to biting our legs, arms, and any exposed piece of skin. So here we go. As we can see, Karula has not moved. There's just a little bit more light on her back. And frogs. Where is the insect book? I'm pretty sure it was around here. Give me a second, and then I'll be able to hopefully. Oh dear, it has migrated to where exactly? I'm not sure. We've got snakes. We've got frogs, birds, mammals, butterflies. And I can't seem to find my insect book. We'll have a look just now. You can see the heavy panting from a full belly. And they are able to digest meat at quite a fast rate, and normally they'll need to kill every 2 or 3 days, but they can go as long as probably 10 days without a meal. Very, very still. There are some birds making a noise. Oh, there we go. Head up a little bit. I think just pure heat that's caused her to do that. And you'll often, at this, when leopards fall like this, the only time we're generally going to see her move is once she's heated up the specific spot she's lying on too much, and she might roll over to a slightly cooler spot on the ground, or sometimes she might go up into the tree where there's a little bit more of a breeze and it's a bit cooler. Maybe my insect book's in the box. No, it's not. I wonder where it's disappeared to. So as I said, oh, there we go, on my arm. Tebs, if you get a chance. And with the super zoom, we can have a look at one of these little mapani bees, or sweat bees, completely stingless bee. They make incredibly tasty honey. Got very distinct little wax entrances to the nests that almost look like the front end of a trumpet, but really small, coming out of trees normally, sometimes in the ground. So really, really tiny. And these are the guys you don't want to squish because it attracts lots more. And he's looking for sweat to collect.
Florida. Good morning, Brent. I think you need to take me on a safari so I can spot the flies for you. Cat, Florida.
Welcome to Cat in Florida. I think good morning to you. Cat says she thinks I need to take her on safari so she can swat the flies for me. I think that's a good idea, Cat. What we will try to do on this safari is I will try some natural fly repellents out in the bush. So speaking of that, let's go see if we can go find one. And we can see which one works the best. So the rusty remote blocker is operational again. So we're going to go across to James because we've got to switch off to start the car, and we'll be back a little later, hopefully with some indigenous fly repellents.
Hello, everybody. I've decided that I do not wish to do my introduction in the vehicle. Therefore, I will do it out of the vehicle. Yeah, I shall perch elegantly upon this marula tree in a heroic pose, searching east into Torchwood, where I'm hoping the wild dogs will emerge. But they have not. You are on live safari, as Brent told you. My name is James Henry. Hello. And Andrew is on camera. I'm sorry about the radio that's talking there. Andrew will just pull it out of its socket and throw it away. Thank you for that, Andrew. My plan today, like I said, was to come to the far east here. We're on the far eastern boundary of Djuma, and to try and find out if the wild dogs had come across during the course of the day. We watched them just on a kill this morning, which was fantastic. Tebs and I, the three adults, and they ran up into here and they rejoined with the pups. Aubrey saw them there, and then they ran around and they lost them in the block there. And they don't seem to have crossed back, unfortunately, onto Djuma. So we'll look around here for a while, see what we can see, and yeah, that's the plan. Please do feel free to ask us any questions you wish to. hashtag SafariLIVE if you are tweeting, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. And let's go and see what we can discover. We had a lovely morning today discussing various interesting little parts of a sort of human biology and emotion and that sort of thing with animals, which was great fun. So thank you for those of you who were with us this morning chatting about those things. On we go. That was a fallen marula tree, by the way, and still very much alive. Oh, I did want to show you something. I found a fruiting marula tree today on quarantine clearings. We'll pop past there during the course of the afternoon. It's a bit early for them to be fruiting in this particular area. But, you know, they don't necessarily adhere to any rule book. The marulas, a bit like Brent Smith. John Jerry on Twitter. John Jerry, you say that you heard domestic dogs barking on the Juma Dam cam earlier, and you're worried that you might be going mad. John Jerry, you're not going mad. You did indeed hear domestic dogs. The general manager of the lodge has a dog. They are very well behaved. They don't bark. The landowner's dogs, however, are not so well behaved, a little bit spoiled, and when they come across, they like to sing and shout. And so I think those are probably the dogs that you were hearing. There's a Jack Russell, a Bull Terrier, and some other nondescript mutt. Or one of the pavements of Hoedspruit, I think. And they like to bark. Normally, if they see something that might alarm them, might be a hyena walking past, might be a leopard walking past, it might just be that they're having a good time. So don't worry, John, you did probably hear a domestic dog. Thank you, Nanaki, for your kind compliment about my sense of humour. Glad you get it. I fear me some days, some don't. But thank you very much for your kind comment. And did you spot something there? No, just being artistic. Good, well done. Right, so we're going to go to the far southeast and then we'll turn back into the west because we'll have no other option, of course, unless we trespass. It's a beautiful afternoon. I'm going to guess at about 27 degrees Celsius, roughly 81 degrees Fahrenheit. I was wrong. Apparently it's 3085. Of course, the weather reports that we get out here constitute a greater work of fiction than the collected works of Charles Dickens. They are meaningless. It's a very beautiful bird there. Very common, very beautiful. Can you see him there? The emerald spotted wood dove. Oh, sorry, you're filming through the aerial. Oh, it is gone. It's got a beautiful emerald spots on its wings. Oh, Brent Smith has found some turkeys. Let's go across to them.
So while I've been searching for some indigenous insect repellents, we've just come across 3 ground hornbills. And as many of our regular viewers know, very endangered species. Less than 300 breeding pairs left in the whole of the country. And very long-lived, probably the longest-lived of all the bird species we get here at Juma. They can live to about 45 to 50 years. There we go. Just go very quietly. So they're obviously out foraging for the female who's going to be on a nest at the moment. try and get opposite them. And they're very, very sensitive to any major changes in their surroundings, and very, very specific nesting requirements. They need hollow trees, and obviously being such a big bird, there are very few trees of the size that is needed for a ground hornbill to nest. They are going into some thick stuff. I'm just going to try and go ahead. Maybe we'll be able to get a view from there. Oh, unfortunately disappearing. And a very warm SafariLIVE welcome to Whitney Chen, who's a new viewer watching on YouTube. Whitney, you are able to communicate with us. You can ask us questions about what we're seeing or what you might be wondering about the African bush, and you can do that by sending us an email on questions at wildearth.tv. Or if you're tech savvy, and you probably are since you're watching on YouTube, hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, and that should get through to our directors in the final control. So we're going to leave those ground hornbills. I'm going to continue in search of some indigenous insect repellents to try and keep the biting flies and sweat bees at bay. Obviously, with the lack of rain, it's going to be a bit harder to find some of them. So Ginny, who's watching on YouTube, would like to know why are ground hornbills so endangered? Mostly due to habitat loss and bad farming practices. So a lot of insecticides that were used to keep crops and things safe carried arsenic and other terrible things. So all the little mice, rats, and insects and things that the ground hornbill was eating were poisoned, so it caused a population collapse. And so mostly due to loss of habitat and bad farming practices. Obviously it's changed, and it's very good news that the population is slowly increasing. So I was hoping there might be something around here. There is permanent water. So we are very lucky in the fact we're able to spend so much time with wild animals on a daily basis. And Noreen, hi Noreen, who's in Milwaukee, was wondering if we have any personal pets, any of us. We don't. It's quite difficult with our lifestyle and living out in the bush. Lots of pets tend to be disappeared by wild animals. Leopards are very fond of eating dogs and cats. And we wouldn't bring anything like a parrot or a bird. I believe one should never keep any birds in cages. That's my personal belief, because I've seen firsthand how those birds end up in people's homes and pet shops from illegal bird trading in the Congo and Zambia. So I personally believe any wild bird like a parrot should be free. But my parents do have a pet, so I suppose I consider that also my pet, and his name is Nunu, and it is a Jack Russell. And she lives on a game reserve, but with a special collar, and it's a shock collar, and there's a perimeter just around the edge of the house. If she goes anywhere near it, it starts beeping, and she now knows if it starts beeping, she needs to turn around and go back, because if she goes further, she'll get a wallop. And that's the only way to keep her safe from the leopards. And yeah, that's the only pet I have, Nunu. But while we are meandering on, let's go see what Jans has got.
Welcome everybody. That is the road in front of you there. There were some impala, one of them quite severely injured on the stomach, but they seem to have disappeared. I'm going to try and get one more view, and I don't know what happened to him. He's got a big flap of skin hanging off his stomach, and we thought initially that it might be a piece of the intestines. It doesn't seem to be. So I think it's just a piece of skin. May have been attacked by a predator, but I think most likely probably caught it running from a predator. Probably caught it on a stick or something like that. There we go. Is that the injured one there?
He's walking away, the injured one,
Through the bush. Yeah, so sorry about that, everyone. I think probably
we can see it a little bit there.
You see a little bit.
He's licking it.
Oh yes, there we go. I think it will recover. It doesn't look like a dire injury. And like I say, I mean, if you do, unlike Brent and Andrew today who are running on the road, if you try and run at that sort of speed through the bush here, you really have got to be very sharp about looking out for things that might spike you. And I suspect that's what's happened to that impala. And if you look over here, these little stumps and things, Andrew, can you imagine running at 100 miles an hour over those things? Well, maybe not 100 miles an hour. In the case of an impala, probably up to 60 kilometers an hour, which works out at roughly, say, 40 miles an hour, plus minus. So, I mean, that will really do some serious damage. Right, let's go back to Brent. He's also got an injured impala, same one we saw yesterday, and let's see how that one's getting on. I think that one's also going to be fine.
So we've come across a little bachelor group of impala, and it's the same impala with the single horn and the very damaged eye. But he is looking not too shabby. We will keep an eye on him. He seems to be around this area quite often. So we will definitely keep an eye on him. I was just hoping he gets out into the open a little bit so we can have a closer look. And I'm going to try to go forward slightly. There we go, there's a gap through there. Of course, he turns his body the other way now, but hopefully, there we go. So probably from fighting, probably got a horn in the eye. And that's his good eye. Now, and as he turns his head, we should hopefully see the bad eye. How's it look, Tebs? So apparently it's changed colour since yesterday. And the biggest threat about having one eye is that, one less eye to keep a look on things. But with animals that live in herds, like impala, they are quite often able to survive with only one eye due to the fact that they've got lots of other eyes looking out for them. But let's leave him be and continue our search for some insect repellents. Peter says citronella and basil are amazing natural bug repellents. I can really state for a fact that citronella does not work on these flies or mosquitoes in Africa. They seem impervious to it. But basil is on my list to try today. Wild basil, Onicum canum, is one of the plant species I'm on the lookout for. I'm going to be checking all the short grass areas where a lot of these annual sages and basils and different flowers, wildflowers grow. Hasn't been much rain, but I'm hoping I'll be able to find at least one. So James, I think, has found one of my favorite little trees in the whole of Djuma. So let's go have a look at it.
Well, as Andrew said, like a Hawaiian palm tree climber, I was attempting to get up this tree to show you not this tree, but indeed another tree growing within this tree. And if Andrew tilts up, you can see what I'm talking about. And it's not a particularly impressive example, but one day it hopefully will be. That is called Ficus stillmanii, or the common strangler fig. And in a living tree it would eventually strangle it. But somehow that tree has managed to seed itself inside this leadwood. And why don't you guess as to how you think it got in there? Hashtag SafariLIVE or questions@wildearth.tv. Tell us how you think Ficus stillmanii got into Combritum and Burby, this beautiful dead leadwood. And I mean, the picture of the clouds going overhead are quite stunning. There's also a vulture up there, and I don't know if you can see that. And to me, one of the most peaceful things you can ever do out here is to watch a vulture or an eagle soaring just in front of a grey cloud. It's the most wonderfully peaceful thing to do. Yes, and as Louise says, imagine the view from up there, but imagine the stillness as well. Oh, what a wonderful feeling. Hello, Sharon in Pittsburgh, while we watch that vulture. You want to know about peregrine falcons and whether they occur at Djuma, and have I ever seen one? Sharon, I imagine that they probably have occurred here before. They're certainly not common. Well, I've never seen one here. I've seen a lanner falcon in the Sabi Sands before. I don't think I've ever seen a peregrine. I'm sure there must be a record or two of peregrine in the Sabi Sands, but there won't be many records of them. And I think they're better suited to more sort of more rocky, hilly areas. But certainly you might find them. A lanner, yes, every so often. A lanner is a slightly bigger version of the peregrine falcon. Beautiful birds. Petra, another ornithological query. You want to know about the bird that sounds like three blind mice. Petra, that bird is called the chin spot batis. There it goes. And people will tell you it sounds like three blind mice, but it only sounds like three blind mice if you're slightly tone deaf. the notes are much more narrowly apart than they are in Three Blind Mice. That's the Battis, and Three Blind Mice would be. If you didn't hear the difference there, don't worry about it. Could well be my whistling. And did you hear the difference?
What difference?
Yes, you might find yourself racing me as well just now. Windy in Hampton Bay. That sounds like a beautiful place to live. You want to know about snakes, and we saw some snake tracks earlier. That, of course, is not a snake. That was a violet-backed starling. Still is a violet-backed starling, indeed. I'm just going to look forward and see if we can get another view of the most magnificent coloured bird. Wendy, we saw some snake tracks earlier, and you want to know how big a snake has to be before it will start to leave a track. Very small, Wendy. It just depends on the substrate. So if it happens to be in a there it is. If it happens to be in some soft sand, even the smallest thread snake will leave a track. But that one that we saw was a large, big fella. Beautiful violet-backed starling. Unfortunately, looks a bit brown because he's sat in the shade. There he goes. Beautiful. And they've got such a nice little call. It's very gentle, sort of metallic whistle. Pathetic rendition. I'm sorry about that. We are now at Twin Dams. So Enid, Pamela, Donna and Smart Redhead, you have answered my incredibly impossible quiz as to what could possibly have seeded that strangler fig. It was indeed probably a bird that ate a fig and then pooped out the seeds while sitting on that tree. And I think I've actually seen Cape Glossy starlings nesting in that tree, so you might find it was those starlings. Although starlings are largely insectivorous rather than frugivorous. In Florida, I'm glad that I'm able to make you have a little bit of a laugh once in a while. And Kat, you want to know about owls? Do we get owls here? And oh, you also said you heard the difference between the Three Blind Mice whistle. Well done, good job. Owls, we do get owls here, Pat. We get quite a few owls. The most common ones would be a pearl-spotted owl, which is a little owl about that big. And we get a Scops owl, which is also a little owl about that big. And then we get a white-faced owl, which is about that big. And then we get a spotted eagle owl, which is about that big. And a giant eagle owl, huge thing, about almost 3 feet tall, would be a giant eagle owl. Those are the most common ones. Let's head across to Brent. He's got a butterfly.
Thank you, received.
Yep, it's right here on the ground. Welcome back, guys, and keeping up with my challenge to myself this wet season. No, it's going too close. Trying to get as many butterfly species on camera as possible. And here's another one for the list. It is one of the little sulfur tips, and it is called a bushveld orange tip or scarlet orange tip. So there we go. That was a female. That's it there. And you can see why the male is called the scarlet tip. And it's beautiful red tips to the wings, but the female not quite as pretty. So there we go. Another butterfly on camera. we are winning today. And on that note, let's go see what James is up to. We're going to continue looking for those insect repellents.
I just got out of the car quickly because I thought I saw a living giant land snail, but I saw a dead giant land snail. Look at that. Oh, too fast. A duiker, everybody. A duiker. We've had 2 or 3 very nice duiker sightings of late, but that one diked off, or dived off, dove off into the bush, not to be seen again. Well done, Andrew. Here comes that dragonfly. Dragonflies, of course, are a source of fascination, and to some people almost as much as birds are. Beautiful colours, but obviously a lot more difficult to identify, given that as soon as you start looking at them through your binoculars, you get a sensation of severe seasickness. And so they're quite difficult to identify, but just fascinating to watch, especially when they're over water. Well done, Andrew. Good job. Good job. Now, Bob in Florida, you ask a query that doesn't have an easy answer, and of course those are the best queries. You want to know about elephants and trees. You say with all the tree damage, and there is substantial amounts of tree damage. If Andrew just puts the camera in this bush as we drive slowly past, you will see lots and lots of trees that have been pushed over. And that's all because of elephants. And you want to know, Bob, how did the tree ecology survive in the face of the onslaught from the elephants? Bob, I believe, well, I mean, the first thing to say is that these trees have evolved with elephants. And here's a really good example there, that beaten that's kind of fallen over and grown up. You can see there it's been pushed over, but it's still alive. And there's another one that's been pushed over, but it's still alive, and it's just growing at a different angle. The trees out here, Bob, have evolved to survive the attacks from elephants and various other animals, so they do okay. And that marula, for example, that I started the show on, was just exactly such a tree. So it had been pushed over completely. And in an area where trees have not evolved with elephants, you probably find that would have killed the tree. But the trees here survived amazing attacks. What would change in the absence of elephants, though, as far as the big trees go, is that their height would change. The number of them I don't believe would change, not substantially, but certainly the height of the vegetation would change, and also the thickness. Now, if you look into this area as we drive past, as we pan through here, this is bush encroachment. Pure and simple. These strychnos trees, which are the most common scrubby little things that you can see as we drive past there, are encroacher species. There shouldn't be that many of them there. And that, to my mind, is a result largely of a lack of elephants. So while there are quite a few elephants around, I don't believe that they are necessarily the same number that there were, say, 300 years ago. And we tend to panic as human beings when we see elephants push over a big tree. We think, oh, that's terrible. And it's A, not terrible because it's part of the ecology of the area, and B, it's largely because we as human beings have pumped water all over the place. And so the land never really gets a respite from the elephants. Nice question, Bob. Thank you. So I don't think there's a struggle for the trees. I think they'll be fine. And certainly, you know, long after we're gone from this place, this is a dynamic system. It will change all the time, and at some stages of its very long lifespan, you know, I mean, we tend also to think of things in terms of a human life, and a good, healthy human life's probably sort of 80 to 90 years long. That's nothing for this area, you know, and for the total ecosystem. So sometimes there will be no big trees here, and then hundreds of years later there will be huge big trees all over the place, and hundreds of years after that it will be grassland. And we get also very kind of het up about, we we get very het up about what a landscape should look like, you know. What should the wilderness look like? We don't know, especially because human beings have been part of the wilderness for so many millennia. We don't know what it should look like. It should look like pretty much what it does look like. Right, I'm going to head up towards quarantine clearings, where I'm going to try and find that fruiting marula tree for you. Although you're not going to be able to taste it, I shall describe the taste of the fruit. Very delicious. Definitely the nicest fruit that we find out here, by a country mile. And just for those of you perhaps new and are wondering what that thing on the front of the car is, it's called a virtual reality rig, and basically it takes a 360-degree view of what we're looking at. It's not on at the moment, and somebody sent through, I forget who, a very nice link to some VR stuff or some 360-degree stuff that you can view online. And you can either do it with the goggles, or you can just do it with your mouse and kind of move over on the screen if you've got sufficient bandwidth and a fast enough internet connection. In South Africa, we generally don't have. Alright, while I'm on my way to this marula tree, let's head across to Brent, see what he's doing, and I'll catch up with him just now.
So we've got a francolin that is alarm calling incessantly here, but there was some kudu around, so I'm not sure whether it's a cat, but I think it could be a snake. So I'm checking very carefully. I would get out of the car to check, but unfortunately, just on the other side of us are some deterrents, walking deterrents, a little group of Cape buffalo bulls. And let's drive in a little bit closer. And it's definitely a terrestrial predator, and not something like a slender mongoose, because it would go much higher than that for a slender mongoose. There's the francolin shouting away. And very unhappy with something. So there's definitely something that the francolin considers to be dangerous to itself and the other francolin around here. And there's two of them up in the tree. Well, one on the side of me and one on the other. There's buffalo moving off a little bit further. Wondering if it's got sight of the snake a snake in that buffalo thorn. So a very distinct alarm call of a slender francolin. You can see very unhappy about something. It almost looks like it's looking to the edge of that ziziphus or buffalo thorn. Wouldn't it be nice if there's a huge python around here? I don't think so, though. I haven't seen any tracks on the ground. And you can see how pretty these little birds are. And let's have a little bit of a closer look at that. So watch, there's another one over there. I'm just watching the other ones pop down onto the ground. Hasn't stopped alarm calling. There's a snake in this buffalo thorn. And looking, what do you got? Ah, there we go, that's what it is. Well spotted. Has it caught a franklin, I wonder? A Warburg's eagle? Looks like it might have caught something, or maybe it missed. But that's what set them off. And they were looking in that direction. I was looking a bit too finer in the thorn tree, but there was a bird hiding behind a bush on the other side of the road. And as we moved forward, it was spotted by Tebs on the back. I'm trying to see if it possibly caught something. If it didn't, it definitely attempted possibly to catch a franklin or a baby franklin, and it might be stalking around in there after said baby franklin, and that's why the adults are so upset. It's a pale morph Warburg's eagle. I wonder if it's trying to flush a baby franklin. So as soon as we heard that noise, I'm rushing in the area to come see what would possibly disturb these franklins so much. I think it might be trying to flush baby franklin from inside there. When you're small out in the bush, lots of different threats from above, from the ground, from under the ground, so it pays to be very vigilant. So here we go. I definitely think it's trying to flush a baby franklin into running. Look at that, look at that. Checking inside those little tussocks of grass, making sure there isn't a baby franklin in there. So I'd say this Warburg's eagle's hunted a few franklin before. And it's quite nice, we don't often see them on the ground, especially not behaving like this. Beautiful close-ups of this eagle's face. And are we going to see a baby franklin panic? Oh, Woodland's Kingfisher just dive bombed it. It doesn't like it around either. Woodlands might have a nest close by. There we go, it's going back in again. So the franklins have finished nesting already, and that's what John in Atlanta is wondering about. And the Warburg's eagle wouldn't be wandering around looking for eggs. It's probably looking for chicks, and it probably spotted them while it was flying past, and they've rushed in. The adults have rushed to the other side of the road, and the babies have rushed into this thicket to try hide, and now this Warburg's eagle is trying to get one of them to panic and run out of that thicket. He probably doesn't want to go inside there with those it's a buffalo thorn, and with his large wingspan and that, he might get caught. So what he's doing is just pacing around the thicket, trying to encourage one of the babies to panic and run. Looks like employing a slight different tactic there. all just trying to panic those little francolin that are hiding in there. Let's see, I wonder if it's going to carry on or move on, deciding that the francolin have won this round and have evaded capture. It's checking carefully all over. Let's go back a little bit. So looks like it might fly shortly, but isn't it a beautiful bird? The smallest of the true eagles we get in this area, the Wilberg's eagle, an intra-Africa migrant. So they migrate down to, oh, there we go. All the other birds screaming, so it gave up, but I'm quite interested to go see if we can possibly spot the francolin that hiding in there. So I think they would have got right under those roots there. It's a very long shot that we might spot it, but I'm pretty sure it's got right in amongst those roots. Can you see anything there, Tebs? Let me try something. So, no luck. But I'm quite sure there's one in there. But wasn't that absolutely incredible? Absolutely fascinating behavior. And if you listen to the book, it often shows you some amazing things. And your ears are quite often more important in finding animals and interesting things than your eyes are. Listening and knowing how to interpret the different sounds in the bush. Oh, hold on. Oh, hold on. So now back to searching for insect repellents. I think quarantine's going to be a good one. So a lot of your medicinal flowers and actually quite often what we would normally consider weeds, and they grow on disturbed soils. And Lynn was wondering how tall would Wilberg's eagle be? They can get to about 60 centimeters. While we continue to look for our bush pharmacy to try and keep these insects at bay, let's go see James, who's with a sclerocarrier.
Can you see me? Can you see me, everybody? Here I stand in the marula tree, the first fruiting marula tree of Djuma Private Game Reserve. I am going to eat a fruit. delicious, but this was not retrieved from where I'm standing now. The clever thing about this tree is that it drops the fruit onto the ground, and the fruit then ripens on the ground. And why does it do that? Because, as we were talking about earlier, the elephants love these fruit, and if they ripened on the tree, of course the elephants would push the trees over, and so the clever tree drops the fruits on the ground where they ripen, and the elephants never push the trees over to get at the fruit. I will bring you one to taste, and I'm just going to try and retrieve now a green one from the tree. Andrew? Andre, you want to know at what age elephants start eating marula fruit? Here's a green one I'll bring and show you now. Andre, probably from as young as 1.5 years old, 18 months or so, maybe even from as young as a year. They really are very delicious. Right, let me try and extricate myself from the tree. If it starts to look very awkward, we'll cut to Brent, and I shall bring across the green fruit that I have to show you. By very awkward, I mean plummets to the floor at great speed. That would be awkward. Not so, Andrew?
Yes, James.
So far, so good. It's the next bit that's going to be tricky.
You so nimble, James.
Yeah. Right. You see, this is where it's going to get rather awkward. I fear me. And I might have to just jump. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh goodness gracious. Will I survive? Ta-da! Right, so here are two that they're not quite ripe, but that's what it looks like on the tree. Kind of hard. It's very hard, like a stone. And then when they ripen, they go bright yellow. This one isn't quite ripe, but I think it'll be edible. Andrew, there you are. Now, Andrew, of course, the last time I gave him one, threw the whole thing in his mouth and gagged for half an hour. Quite sour at the moment. Not quite sweet. How's yours, Andrew? Delicious.
Sour worms.
Sour worms without the sweetness afterwards. Right. There we go. Thank you, Katya. You say, who needs vervet monkeys when you've got me? Well, I think that's a compliment. I'm not sure. Let's carry on. Most of these trees will not fruit until February. And these, that's a female, of course. And the males, of course, don't produce fruit at all. So they're what we call dioecious. Yes, dioecious. In other words, they've got separate male and female trees. Whew. Thank you, Andrew, for that. I feel quite out of breath. Extensive climbing. I do enjoy a good tree climb. Right, let's see what else we can find about these parts. Jeff Top, you say, man, are you crazy? What are you doing up there in the middle of the jungle? Jeff Top, I'm feeding myself and the cameraman. It's very difficult, you know, we don't have a lot to eat here. We get fed bread and water once a week, and for the rest of the time we have to forage on our own. So marula season is obviously very exciting for us, because it means for one month of the year we get to eat something sweet and fruity. It's very delicious. What are we going to? go around to the Gallagher waterhole. Oh, no, I mean, many of you would have heard of amarula liqueur, which is a sort of a cream, and the amount of amarula it has in it is probably about the same. Just trying to think of the right sort of concentration. It's got probably about 0.0001% is actually amarula, the liquid from the fruit. But it's got a wonderful story about it, and it tastes very nice indeed. Nothing like marulas though, but it's a world-famous liqueur of Africa. The other drink that's made out of it is a fairly potent beer called marula beer, and Andrew, you described it as? Quite which I think means it's quite tart, but quite powerful. And then, of course, the Boers, the early settlers, used to distill a really hard liquor out of it, called, you can make this out of anything, of course, but it was called mampoer, marula mampoer. You don't want anything to do with that. Thank you for bringing me back down to earth with a bump. You say you're sorry, but I'm nowhere near as graceful as a leopard coming out of the tree. Marisha, I would have to agree with you there. I tried to be graceful there, but then at the end, I became deeply fearful, and so the grace went out the window. But I will keep working on it, as you suggest. One day, I will look like a gymnast, flying up and down the tree. Out what's at the waterhole here. There's some buffalo tracks around here. And Christopher, you're in Arizona and you make a very good point. You say, do I ever worry about hitting a snake or, coming across a snake while I'm in the tree like that? I do, And if there's a big hole in the tree, I will always be fairly careful about climbing up. If there's something like a tree snake or what we call a worm slung in the tree, what you'll find is that they will see me coming long before I see them, and they'll move away. If there's a hole in the tree, though, and there's a snake living inside it, then, of course, the risk is that you put your hand in to get a grip or something, and they see that as a threat, and then they might bite. And so I'm very careful about that, Christopher. Thank you very much, Tommy. You and Marissa can argue this point. Tommy, you say you give me a 10 for the dismount. That's very kind. Thank you very much. Next time I shall attempt some sort of backflip. Probably not. And here is a whole group of beefy buffaloes. Some of them drinking. Some of them lying in the water, befouling it. And others just doing what buffalo do best, which is, of course, stare at you like debt collectors. Yes, hello. I don't owe you any money. Go away. Now, a very nice question from Ashley while we look at this beef. Ashley, you want to know why we don't see sable antelope on drive? Interestingly, there was one seen on Nkoro, just to the south of us, and one on Buffelshoek the other day. I suspect the same bull. Actually, the main reason is that the habitat is just not right. They prefer long grasslands. They need to be able to get away from water because their calves they leave lying up in long grass. They don't move with the herd immediately like impala do. And what that means is that they have to be able to get away from water because lions, of course, concentrate their activities around waterholes, especially in the dry season. And if you can't get away from water, then you can't get away from predation. And so one of the major reasons is the amount of water that there is in an area like the Sabi Sands. There's just too much of it for there to be that kind of... There's too much water, and there's also there's no kind of extensive grassland areas, and that's just got to do with the geology of this particular area. But that's why we don't see sable or roan or eland in this area. Let's go a little bit closer. Sometimes about these buffalo, but they're actually tremendously good value. They give us a lot of sightings. Just get around the other side of the sun so we can look at them properly. As Louise says, probably largely because the lions are not killing them. There are not a lot of lions around this particular area at the moment. Good point, Louise. Thank you for that. Slightly cynical, of course, but... There we go. Chewing the cud, sitting in the water, having a nice time. Smart Redhead, you ask a very good question, and it's a very valid one, and your assumption is completely correct, except that it doesn't apply to this area specifically. You say, wouldn't trees, because of the high water table, have much more shallow root systems and therefore be easier to push over for the elephants? Yes, they would, but the water table here is not high, Smart Redhead, and those trees, like the marulas, grow on ridge crests and in deep sandy soils where the water table is always fairly far below the surface, so they're not particularly easy to push over. And if you ask Brent about Gabon, where he was for almost a year, he'll tell you about the trees there that fall over all the time because the roots are so shallow, precisely because the water table is so high. So good question, thanks Smart Redhead, but the water table here is not high. It's often quite low down, and so the trees do have fairly extensive deep root systems. This sort of group of bulls does amaze me. There seem to be more and more of them every day lurking around Djuma. Possibly because the lions haven't been around here for so long. I mean, I don't think we've seen a lion on Djuma for, what, Andrew, but 4 weeks? 5 weeks, maybe? There hasn't been a lion coming through this area. And then I also think that when the herds come through, we had a herd through here the other day. I'm sure one or two of these guys probably actually came from that herd. And they'll lurk around with the bulls for a while, and then they'll rejoin the herd. I just do feel that the buffalo, I mean, they make such a mess of the water here. And I often think that it would be better if they, found a bit of a mud wallow to lie in rather than a nice, clean, pumped pan like this one. There's also a kudu coming through here, Andrew. I don't know if you can see it there, just kind of easing its way through the thorny bush that the elephants have pushed over. Young female kudu, beautiful cow. Look at the light there, catching the green leaves, golden light, and more a real scene that you'd kind of associate with the early September once the new leaves had come, but the grass was still brown. And that's a very sort of dryish, that's a different colour scene from a normal December one. That pole that you can see in the middle of your screen is a dead knobthorn tree, and we were just chatting about the effects that elephants have on animals, at least on trees, and one of the major effects is to pull the bark off. And so quite apart from pushing them over, which most of the trees here will survive, once they get ring barks like that, you can see a concentric ring of bark has been pulled off that tree. Once that happens, the tree is done for. There we go. Right. Let's move on from here. Just listening to the radio quickly.
I'll keep that in mind for the next time.
I don't think there's anything of any import. Right, on we go. Don't get up on my account, please. I mean, this chap really looks like a debt collector. Watch him go into the water. See if he does. Yes, I know it's tough. It's so resentful. Go on, go and slobber in the water. No, even that's too much effort. Alright, there we go. Alrighty, let's head back to Brent, see what he's doing, and I'll keep you posted. I'm going to head back sort of towards the east and see if I can get an update on the dogs from this morning.
So with this incredibly dry weather we're having, finding certain of the species of plant that we need to effectively find a natural insect repellent is proving to be a little bit more difficult. And I do have one more spot I want to check. Also, it'll take us back down around the treehouse waterhole, and I'm hoping possibly some elephants have moved into that area for that water. Very sunny welcome to Richard in the United Kingdom, who would like to know whether we actually actively manage the land or do we just let it go. There is a little bit of management in the Sabi Sands. As you can see, those pumped water holes, obviously those are not natural, and also with fires. So fire is a very important tool out in Africa. Majority of Africa outside the main forest blocks are what you call a fire climax biome, which means a lot of the grass species actually need fire every couple of years to rejuvenate. So very, very interesting. But those are very, very little. Okay. Come on, we've got to get some luck on this road with some dwarf sage. Really hoping we're going to get some luck. Might be a bit dry, so I know the normal way to use it is to rub the wet sage on your body. That doesn't look too bad. There we go. So this is dwarf sage. It grows on seep lines. You can see it's still nice and green. There's underground movement of water here. And this particular seep line is the ones the elephants have excavated down a treehouse waterhole. So the water is quite close to the surface. Okay. A nice, fresh little green sprouts. Oh, that's a good one. So, according to the Baye, the river bushman of Botswana, this is all you do. So just rub it in there, get it on the nose, move behind the ears a bit, make sure those flies stop biting. And on the legs, let's see. There we go. And there we go. Getting in there, nice and green. Let's have a look. Now let's see if those stable flies stay away. Oh, arms still. Nee, that would have been terrible to forget the arms. Okay. Let us continue. And hopefully insect, Mopani bee and stable fly free. We shall find out in the next few minutes. So also another way you can make an insect repellent out of the dwarf sage is to boil it in a little bit of water, and then obviously a lot of that comes out, and the exact, oh no, I can't remember its name, went black, dwarf sage, here we go. It contains phenylheptarine, which has been found to be extremely toxic to insects. So with the sage, wild basil, and indigofera, a lot of it is also boiled. A combination of a lot of those plants are boiled and used as actual insecticide on crops to keep them from eating all the crops out in the villages in northern Botswana. So very, very interesting. And I did try and find some indigofera, but they're the most tired indigoferas in the world. They have been burnt to crisp by the sun. Well, we're just chatting about the little Mopani or sweat bees, which are a stingless bee. Christopher, who lives in southwest Arizona, is wondering, do we have a problem with killer bees? There's occasionally dogs and people are attacked and are sometimes killed by killer bees in the summer months in Arizona. Well, Christopher, there's no real easy way to say this. The stock standard run-of-the-mill average normal African honeybee is what you call killer bees in North America and Europe. So it is an African killer bee, are the killer bees, and we have lots of them. They're the only bee species we have, and it's called the African honeybee. It's only got a reputation, or the name killer bee, since taking over hives in the States. So it has done quite a serious bit of damage to your indigenous bee population in the States. They're obviously more aggressive, and they take over hives of the European honeybee, which is the same honeybee you get in North America. But bees are very, very important. Without bees, there'd be no vegetables and food, so very important to look after bee populations. Not only does it seem to be effective so far, it's quite nice smelling. So I smell wonderful at the moment. Don't you think so, Tebs? You want to smell? Here we go. Yeah, very nice, very pleasant smell. Another way it can be used is especially in homes, especially on the western edge of the Okavango Delta, is sage is dried and burnt to repel mosquitoes. And of course it's better than the other option, which I know Steph has done, and one of the other traditional methods for keeping insects away is to get an elephant dung, a piece of elephant dung, and burn it, and it smoulders for long periods of time, and the smoke keeps the insects away, but it also at certain times will blind you and send you into coughing splutters. Come on, pop your head out. Some little dwarf mongoose. You can hear him calling. Here we go, head's popping out. Very, very cute little guys. The smallest member of the order Carnivora. So, ooh. There we go. Just see a little pink nose and some eyes popping out of the little termite hole. And you hear the little alarm call. Contact calls. So I think that's another one for the carnival competition. And let me just see where this puts us now. We've seen leopard, hyena, and dwarf mongoose. And wild dogs, 4. I think James has seen the exact same, so it's 4 all at the moment. And I said I'll be really impressed if we even get to 10 in this carnivore challenge that we're running until New Year's Eve. It's still quite windy. Not seeing any sign of elephants, which is disappointing. I would really like to see some eddies today. Only saw that one big bull on the sunrise safari. I like to keep you guys updated about the bush pharmacy, and Lynn, who's in Ontario in Canada, would like to know where I've gained my knowledge. Well, Lynn, from various different sources, a lot, mostly actually from reading, and a few of the different traditional things I've actually seen in use in different places in Africa. And I just have a real interest in the medicinal uses of plants and flowers. And so I've got I've got 6 or 7 different books that's just exclusively on the traditional medicinal uses of wildflowers and plants in the African bush. And the reason at the moment we focus on the flowers a bit more is because they're only here for the summer months, or even though there's been so little rain, there's so few of them around. So I think what we are going to go have a look for is we might find some interesting insects and maybe even an African killer bee at these little mud wallows that have been dug by the elephant. So where we collected that dwarf sage that I was rubbing all over myself was at the head of this seep line. And that seep line turns into a little drainage system, which then turns into what is treehouse waterhole, and it looks like there's some kudus drinking there. So very interesting. So the water is naturally moving under the ground from the crests of the hills down. Oh, there's quite a bit happening here compared to a little bit earlier. So the one who's going to run away, let's get a safety of him quickly there. It's a warthog and it's already on the move. Yes, gone. So there are some kudu. Let's go have a look at them. Oh, there's a warthog. Oh, and he's gone again. Nice, Tebsy. Tebs got hold of that warthog. And we're going to go look at the kudu now. And we'll see the elephant. Oh, kudu staring up the little drainage system. Have they spotted something? There's a Franklin alarm calling, and that's what's caused the kudu to focus its attention there. Hello, kudus. Beautiful antelope. So the one problem is the eddies haven't been here for a while, and they don't dig out these seeps too often, they will close up again. And at the moment, this little seep is an incredibly important lifeline in this area of the reserve. I mean, the water, there is water close enough by that they could walk to another set of water, but this enables these animals to spend more permanent time in this area. I mean, look at that. Incredible. The elephants have dug this now, and what we will need is for them to come and re-dig it. And you can see these wonderful little pans here. I'm just going to go have a quick look. This is where I think Karula came to drink after eating that. So I just want to see what else is here. So I'm going to stick as well, and we can see how deep it is. What happens is when all the other animals come to use it, there's quite a lot of mud build-up. And so that's the problem. And always with these little bits of water, like, it's got to be careful. Lots of wasps and lots of bees will come and collect water from here. So I'll try. So not deep at all. That's that. And obviously with all the animals coming to drink here, they push a lot of the mud back in and sand. And an elephant's probably the only one who's going to be strong enough to dig into this, but we've got to cross to James quickly, who's got something that might fly away.
We have just done a virtual reality thing. I think I'm going to call it a 360 thing, I think, from now on, because it's not so much. Virtual reality has something slightly inauthentic about it, and we just need to turn it off. And basically what we've been doing is driving through this drainage line. It's beeping at me, it's shouting at me. Shut up. Driving through this drainage line, basically, just sort of imagine yourself driving through here, but instead of sort of just looking through the lens you're looking at now, if I'm pointing at, say, a big tree we're going underneath, then you're able to actually turn around and look at the tree, and I can say, look at the blue sky. And instead of the camera moving, you can just tilt your head, and there you can see the sky and the trees going through it. So that's basically what we've been doing here. I don't know how we're going to get out of here, but we're going to try. Let's see. I think it's going to pay dividends, well, I hope it's going to pay dividends to spend a bit of time going to and from the east of Djuma at the moment, simply because I think those dogs might pop out as it gets a bit cooler. It hasn't been a very hot day, like I say, it's been very pleasant. And not 85 degrees. So I don't think that they're going to get moving as late as they might normally. Watch out here, this is a tambuti tree. You don't want to get any of the milky latex on you there, otherwise, well, that's it. It's okay if it gets on your skin, you just don't want to eat it. If you eat it, it can actually be lethal. But I think we'll get out of here without too much fuss. I'm kind of hoping to find an elephant down here as well. Oh, I must have this one. Right, let's head across to Brent here. Scott, apparently he has a drinking wasp.
So we're still there, and as I said, lots of different stinging insects to these little water holes, and there is a wasp in there at the moment that we're going to try and find for you. I think it took off, but incredibly, if we go back to look here, so I was looking very carefully while you went to go look at that bird with James, and I can actually see where the water's seeping out. So the water's actually quite clean here, and it's actually flowing down into the low point. So the water is seeping out. So if I was out in the bush and stranded and walking, this would be an excellent spot for me to get drinking water from. The water relatively clean. If you strained it, it would probably be very, very drinkable. And it's also these nice little seeps, so there's not a lot of feces from elephants and buffalo in it. It's a bit small for like a buffalo to climb into. and the ellies come dig the sand out of here. And you saw it's not very deep and it's not a lot of mud. The mud has been pushed in by animals, so it's actually sand. Let me see if I can, here we go. I grab out of this one. This one's a bit dirty. So you see it's little quartz sand, so it's been filtered very heavily. So the mud's only from the surface, it's not from the water underneath. So without too much effort, I'd be able to get a really good, clean source of drinking water. And strangely enough, I'm not going to do it, but another one of the traditional insect repellents is to cover yourself completely in mud. That would be a little bit uncomfortable for the rest of the safari, though. Now, so Rocky Knight did mention earlier that mud would work as an insect repellent. Yes, it's sort of one of those, you've got to weigh up the odds. Is it worth the mud or the bugs? I think in this certain case, I would definitely take the biting flies over caking myself in mud. Matt, who's age 9 in Ohio. Matt would like to know if the frog's still active with no rain. Yes, Matt, certain species will, others would have gone back into a form of hibernation, again, till the rain comes out. But certain species of the frogs will be active, but very few. Mainly, I think the foam nest frog and the great tree frog will be the one that's the most active at the moment. Down towards the Mawati drainage line. It's quite cool. See what we can find there. Oh, look, it's that wounded impala, but much closer to us now. Oh man, that is a really nasty wound on his eye. There's always a danger of infection. And you can see, obviously, with an eye that injured, it is going to weep. An unlucky battle wound. I'll let him go. Ashley's wondering specifically, because of that wound on the impala's eye, are there fly species that will lay their eggs in there and cause maggots to be living on the flesh of a live animal? Yes, there are quite a few different species, including the common housefly will do that. So there's a strong chance that there are already fly eggs laid in there, but it could be actually beneficial. Now, those maggots will eat all the rotting flesh, and obviously that sometimes helps the animals with infection because they remove the infection by eating it. Can you believe I've even had it's still there. Oh, it's gone. It was a little testicular. So can you believe I've even had live maggot feeding on my flesh before? Terrible thing. Quite interesting species of fly though. It's called a putzie fly or a mango fly, and further north in Africa, we don't get them here. They lay their eggs quite often in damp clothing. Don't fly too far, don't fly too far. And you get them through the bush there just as a safety. So we've got, it looks to be either an African or European cuckoo. Oh, he's gone. Let's try see, he's not flying too far. Might get another view of him. Now, cuckoos are great caterpillar eaters. Even those hairy ones that cause us great discomforts. Oh, he's flying off again. But back to the fly and the maggots in the leg. So what happens is they lay the eggs on damp clothing. Also, dogs and other animals are really plagued by it during the wet season. And you often don't realize they're there for quite a while. So I actually had 3 maggots in my leg, and I only realized at school. So what had happened is everything you own from a clothing point of view has to be ironed, and that's what kills the eggs. And I was in a rush to get to rugby practice. I used to play for the team, the town team in Maun, Botswana, known as the Maun Wild Dogs. And I was in a rush, so I grabbed my rugby socks off the drying line, and I didn't iron them. And then I went off back to boarding school, and about 10 days later, I sort of scratched my leg, and I noticed this big bump on my calf, and I knew exactly what it is. Dogs used to get it quite often, and the trick with the putsy fly is if you squeeze it, you actually cause the maggots to pop and can get very bad infection. So you actually have to pull the skin away, and then when the little white head pops out, you can take a pair of tweezers and pull them out. So the reason you don't want them to pop and you want them to come out whole is that they very interestingly have an anticoagulant. Sorry, not an anticoagulant, a coagulant, so that stops excessive bleeding, and they also have a local anesthetic in their saliva, so you can't even feel it. So the only reason we felt it. Oh, is it going to stop it out in the open? No, it was a bushveld-plated lizard that just disappeared down its hole. But there we go, there's my maggot story. I think I was about 17 at the time. Fortunately, I've only had them twice. On the subject of maggots and medicine, James Taylor would like to know, do any doctors use maggots as medicine? That I'm aware of in this area. But in the Middle Ages and that, it wasn't uncommon practice when someone had bad infection there too, flies to lay eggs in that wound and get them to eat the rotting flesh off. I know a bird we see and hear often, but nonetheless, in that beautiful late afternoon light, stunning woodland kingfisher. A beautiful turquoise color. And when the light catches these guys, they're just a sight to behold. Fortunately, I have a pair that live outside my room, so actually I can, when I'm working at my desk or reading, I can see them right outside, not even 3 meters from my window. So we'll leave the woodlands there. Now, a very interesting story about the kingfishers that are part of the woodlands family, or the so grey-hooded woodlands. I think mangrove, shining blue. No, not shining blue. Chocolate-backed. Oh, anyway, quite a few of them in Africa. And the Latin, or the scientific name for a woodland kingfish is Hyena senegalensis. Senegalensis from Senegal was probably where it was first described by European ornithologists. And halcyon is a word that is used in the English language. It is originally from Italian. And it refers to when the ocean is completely flat, like a lake. The Mediterranean does get like that from time. So on those halcyon days, kingfishers would get confused and fly out to sea and would often land on ships or be found dead floating in the water. And it was obviously a relative of the woodlands, and that is where that whole family of kingfishers got the first part of their scientific name. Hi, Billy from the Lone Star State. Billy, do the animals Verreaux? I've never seen that before. I've seen them roll on stage, but I think it might just be per chance.
There is a beautiful little cuckoo, everybody. A jacobin cuckoo. Isn't he lovely? Now, if I'm not mistaken, the jacobin cuckoo parasitizes the babbler, the arrow-marked babbler. Sorry about the radio. That's Craig. And what that means, everybody, is that, of course, the cuckoo doesn't make its own nest. Cuckoo will lay its egg in the nest of a babbler, and the babbler will then raise the young cuckoo. And the most fascinating thing to see at the end of the summer season is a striped or a jacobin's cuckoo lurking about with a flock of babblers. And the funny thing about it, of course, is that the babblers are half the size of an adult cuckoo, and yet the cuckoo still thinks that it's one of the babblers, and the babblers still think that it's one of them. And for the first season, they often don't migrate away. They will stay with their flock of babblers and grow big and totally distinct, and then the next year they'll go off and sort of breed on their own. And then they'll migrate. And no one teaches them how to migrate. No one tells them where to go, how to go, what to eat. And they just know. And I do find it so utterly astonishing. I'm just finding a picture of him because I'm not convinced that I'm right about the babblers. I know the Lavaliance or striped is definitely a babbler, a parasitizer. But the Jacobin, which is that fellow over there, he comes in two morphs, the black morph and the white and black morph. They parasitize bulbuls, yeah. They're a bit smaller than the striped. So they parasitize bulbuls and other small birds. Beautiful. That's another one we get here. The African emerald cuckoo, which is just a beautiful bird. Look at him. Lovely. Right, that's the cuckoos. They don't have very nice habits, of course. And they, of course, give rise to the term cuckold, which I've used before. And it's all to do with the adulterous affairs that many of the mammals out here have. And that's where it comes from. Right, we're on the worst road at Juma. It's called Hyena Road. Now, Bob, a very good question from you. What do woodland kingfishers eat, given that you've never seen them anywhere near water. Bob, they don't eat fish, they eat insects. There are 4 or 5 species of fish-eating kingfishers and 4 or 5 species of non-fish-eating kingfishers. And the ones we get here that eat fish, and a very good rain year, we'll get giant kingfisher here. We get pied kingfisher quite often, they eat fish. The malachite eats fish, as does the mangrove and the half-collared. We don't get the mangrove here, obviously, because there are no mangroves. Mangroves are on the coast. And then the striped, the woodlands, the grey-hooded. The grey-hooded sometimes eats a bit of fish, but frogs and fish and insects. So let's go with striped, woodland, brown-hooded, and the grey-hooded are insect-eating kingfishers. And the pygmy, of course. We see beautiful sightings of pygmy kingfishers here, especially at the Hyena there. They're actually nesting with the hyenas in their little termite mound. Right, we're back on the northern cut line, the Buffelshoek cut line. Very good question here. I'm from Genevieve in New York. There's a beefalo. We're not going to stop. We've seen plenty of beefalos. Genevieve, in New York, you want to know why the buffalo weaver's nest looks so different from the southern masked weaver or the village weaver. They're not very closely related. They are still weavers. They're not very closely related. And all those closely related weavers, the red-headed, the village weaver, the southern masked, what else? The yellow weaver, the spectacled weaver, they're more closely related to each other than are the red-billed buffalo weavers. It's just a different strategy and a slightly different way of living. The buffalo weavers are the only communal nesting ones. So while the others nest in colonies, the red-billed buffalo weaver is the only one that actually has a communal nest, like a block of flats that they live in together. Or a council estate, depending on, the salubrious nature of the environment in which they find themselves. Right, so we're going to go along to Buffelshoek Dam and then back out onto the eastern cut line. I'm not laughing at your question. I'm laughing at the pronunciation of where you come from, which I don't know what it is either. Lake Nebagaman. I don't know where Lake Nebagaman is. Louise is now laughing in my ear because she says that's what it says. Well, Patty and Lake Nebagaman, wherever that is, it sounds like it might be in a J.K. Rowling novel or a Tolkien novel. Nebagaman, quite like that. You want to know about secretary birds and are they rare? And you say you saw one, you think, with me when I first started. I think we did see one when I first started on the Arathusa airstrip. We see them relatively well, not often, but when we do see them, that's often where they are. They like open areas where they can stalk around, find snakes, stomp on their heads. Relatively open areas, stuff like this kind of thick vegetation here, you're not going to find secretary birds in. Apparently, Nebagaman is not in fact in WildEarth, but in Wisconsin. Now, we're arriving again at the Buffelshoek Dam, where there is nothing to greet us. Mercifully, no stuck impala, and no wild dogs either. Just wondering, certainly Brent suspects that the impala that Andrew and I found stuck in the mud 3 days ago, Brent reckons that they were probably chased there by wild dogs, and I think that's probably quite a good thought. So even though there's no water here, if the impala are being chased, they may well run towards the dam, thinking there's water. if we've ever had any reports of a Sasquatch at Juma or in the Kruger. Kamala, you're in Ohio, and I've got absolutely no idea what a Sasquatch is. I feel like I've been asked about this before, and I should remember. Andrew, any idea what a Sasquatch is? Sounds like a sort of not very tasty vegetable. Oh, is it like an abominable snowman? Yes, that's right. That's exactly what it is. Well done. Okay, no, we haven't had any. I know exactly when we had this discussion, actually. It was when I then described the togolosh, which is a sort of African equivalent, if you like, of a Sasquatch. They're much shorter, but much more well endowed in various parts of its body. No Sasquatches here.
We have a wild man, Brent.
We have the wild man. I suppose, yes, you're absolutely right. Brent Smith is the closest thing we have to Sasquatch here. That's actually, well done, Andrew, yes. Okay, exactly right, I forgot. I knew I'd seen one somewhere. He's got enormous feet. He's probably not quite hairy enough to be a Sasquatch. That's probably because of the heat. You know, were you to go to winter climate, Andrew, he'd probably be a lot hairier. He'd probably grow a winter coat.
He's adapting.
Yes, that's a very good idea. Louise suggests that we ask the viewers to give us a screenshot comparison of Brent Smith and a Sasquatch. I think that's a very good idea. I know exactly what Brent's going to call me. He's going to call me the togolosh. Right, so nothing yet coming this way. I think it was probably about, I'm going to guess at about an hour and 10 minutes out, which would put us about 10 to 6. And it's round about now, I think, that the dogs would start to be getting moving. I don't think we're going to spend the whole afternoon driving in small circles here. Hello, Kristen. You were just thinking about the Ficus stillmanii, or common strangler fig, that we saw in that leadwood tree earlier. And you want to know, you say you spent a Christmas in Germany, and you said lots of the trees there have got mistletoe in them, and do we get it here? We do. I don't think it's the same kind of mistletoe, but I'll try and find you some. It grows in marula trees, like this one. And I know where there is some mistletoe, and I picked some a little while back. Not in that particular tree. So Kristen, definitely, we'll look out for some mistletoe in the marula trees now. Drive out onto the eastern cut line, just see if anything's happening there, and then make our way back towards the west, I think. Slightly astounded that they weren't found again this morning. I think they went into quite a thick block. So special to see them herring down the road here, preceded by a herd of terrified impala. The coolth is starting to seep into the evening now, which is lovely. The sun is starting to dip, and we're on a nice high point here. On a clear day, you can see the mountains. Sean in Secunda, which is in South Africa. Sean, you want to know how we choose who drives Jigger and who drives Rusty? Is it rock, paper, scissors? Is there a fast rule? Do we perhaps arm wrestle for it? Or indeed have a 40-meter race, like Andrew and Brent did today? No, it's a fairly severe routine. one day. So one day you sit in comfort here, listening to the growl of Jigger's engine, and then the next day you listen to the purr of Rusty's engine while having your cervical vertebra merged with your lumbar vertebra through your thoracic vertebra. Right, we're pulling out onto the cheetah cat line now. Goodness gracious, Christine, this is a task that was going to take a lot more skill than I have. You were saying I should try and climb all the trees that Scott has found chicks in, and nests in, and take pictures, and then have a competition to see who can identify all the chicks. First of all, Scott Dyson has a very, very rare talent for finding birds' nests, and I don't even know where all of them are that he's found. Secondly, in order to climb a tree and then take a photograph, you've sort of got to have more hands than I have. But yes, I think it would actually be quite a nice idea. Scott's certainly got some nice pictures of the lilac-breasted roller chicks. They're amazing pictures. So yeah, maybe over the years we should build up a bit of a library of babies. I must say birds are totally nondescript though when they're born. I'm just looking into the boughs of all the marula trees to see if there isn't some mistletoe. I can't see any. We will find some. I know where there is some. It's just not around here. It's not to say there isn't any around here though. There are no tracks of the dogs and no sign of them either at this stage. Let's just stop and have a quick listen. There's a mistletoe in that tree, Andrew. I think that guy can get up there.
There we go.
Can you see the mistletoe? This is actually the perfect place to be doing it because it is around about where the dogs were. If I can get a handhold on that piece there, I can probably get up there. Christine, if I fall out of this tree, it's your fault. There's the mistletoe. You can see it up there. This is called Park by Feel. There you go. Right. Louise may or may not cut across to Brent, depending on how inelegant this looks. We'll try and get you a piece of mistletoe, and I'll try and spot the dogs. They were right in this block. Louise says this will be far more entertaining. It might be also traumatic for all concerned. Okay. Second one for the day. I'm not sure about this, to be honest. How are you doing, Andrew? Are you impressed yet, Andrew?
Looks very dangerous, James.
Andrew, why are you not shouting encouragement? Especially as this tiny twig is about to snap.
Go, James!
There we go. Whew. Right. That's the worst part. Okay. Now, the real danger. I'm not sure I can get up this bit. Well, not without doing myself a severe injury. Oh, my heart rate is going up. Here I am. The mistletoe is still a long way above me. Oh, yeah. Nearly lost my footing there. Okay, here we go. Okay. Still a distressingly long way above me. Andrew, is the first aid kit in the car?
Yes.
Okay, good. You may require it to stitch me back together. Okay. Of course, now I have to do this because I'm here.
Go, James.
If I was really brave, I would just walk across here. I'm not that brave, you see. I'm too scared. Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm not there yet. Oh, dear. I'm glad I don't have the lapel mic on because I'm panting heavily. Christina, I hope you appreciate this. Right. There we go. There is the mistletoe. Beautiful. I shall kiss the sun with it hanging over my head. Pretend the lips of Scarlett Johansson are sharing this magnificent view with me. There we go. You are, Andrew. You may show that to the viewers while I climb down. You like another piece?
I think one's enough.
There we go. Right. I think rather than watch me try and come out of this large tree, let's go across to Brent Verreaux Smith, and Andrew will just quickly give you a view of the mistletoe close up. There we go. And it does actually have very beautiful flowers on it. That's one stage of its life. That's a bit later on in the season. And I must just tell you, before you go across to Brent, the view from up here is something to behold. I can see the mountains and the foothills of the mountains and the golden, light golden setting sun as it goes to the west. Let's head across to Brent, see what he's up to, and I will attempt to climb down in an elegant fashion.
So we went to check on Queen Karula. She is gone. So I'm coming back to the treehouse waterhole, see if she might have come here for a drink. Otherwise, I'm going to head further to the northwest. And apparently, James says the view from the top of that marula is beautiful. I know, James. I see things from quite high often. So let's have a look. Karula's managed to sneak down here towards the water. We do know there are some kudu in the area, so if they spot her, they'll start alarming. Not here yet. Zoom straight in on that very small little tree. Oh, don't worry, he's gone. James says one day I'll have to learn a new joke. Well, no, it's such a good one. It never gets old. So it doesn't look like Karula's come down. I'm going to loop around and check the other road. Then I still have a sneaking suspicion she's headed towards Zoe's road. So we'll go have a look now. Jim Butler on Twitter says, yo Brent, yo Jim. And he'd like to know how many dwarf mongoose live together, as well as how many banded mongoose live together. Generally around 8 to 15 individuals, but sometimes for both species you do get businesses of over 30. But generally a big business will be around 15 individuals. So chatting about businesses of mongoose, Marlene in Quebec says her favorite animals are meerkats and banded mongoose. Do we get them at Juma? We do get banded mongoose, not very common, but we do see them from time to time. As for meerkats, they live in the arid south and west and central areas of the country, also up to the north into Botswana. So we don't get any meerkats here. Queen Karula, where are you? Hi, Heidi from North Carolina. I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop. We're having our mic rattled off. Just give Tebs a second to pop it back on. We good? Cool. Is wondering, we said we see baby impala and baby wildebeest every drive now almost. Why aren't we seeing baby kudu, baby waterbuck, baby inyala? It's because, Heidi, they're not seasonal breeders. They breed throughout the year, so their babies can be randomly at any time of the year, whereas the impala and wildebeest only birth at this time of the year. Okay, so we've done a big loop here. I just want to check for tracks quickly. Well, it does seem the wild sage has worked. I'm not being destroyed by insects at the moment. Temperature's dropped a little bit. Very pleasant at the moment. Hi, James Taylor on Twitter said also heard that burning pieces of a termite mound apparently work as well. Have I ever tried that? I've never heard of that one, James. And I'm not sure why it would work. I can't think of any reason for, and it'd be very difficult to burn as well. Burning sand.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.
Just checking very carefully for tracks around here.
Stations with Dutch 500 for Dutch 500.
Is that the first lesser spotted eagle of the year, or is that where you got a gap, Tebs? Good. I need to get my binos out for this. Too big for Warburgs. So you need me to move? Forward, back? Good? So there's some eagles. Now what I'm looking at, if Tebs, can you zoom in on the face? What we're looking for is how far the gape of the beak extends beyond the eye, and that goes right to the back of the eye from what I can see. It's just they're sitting in a funny spot, but I do think I know what it is. I wonder if anyone out there knows what it is. I'm just double checking the book. I don't think I've seen one of these yet this wet season. Sorry guys, I'll be with you in a second. And such beautiful afternoon light. Let's get to the Aquila eagles. There we go. So it is what I think. I think it is it. It's quite difficult. I just need to have a look at the legs again. But I think this is a pair. So the gape extends all the way to the end of the eye. Can you get a close-up on any of the legs and the feathers on the legs? Not really from here. Oh dear. And sometimes yes, so they do have feathered legs all the way down to tanners. I'm trying to see if it's got what you would call fin leggings. I missed that one flying. I was busy looking at the book. Hopefully if the other one flies, then it's a dead giveaway. It makes it much easier. Tebs, did you see any white in the wings as that one took off? So I'm going to hesitate to guess while we're still. I would say it is a lesser spotted eagle. So it could be a new one for a few of your bird lists. A big brown eagle, but it does have some sort of white spots on its wings, and its gape extends beyond the eye like that. That's one of the distinct things, and then it's just got that little bit of white in the wing. And it can be very difficult to tell a lot of these guys apart. But nice to see another bird. Let's continue to look for Karula. I just need to check on the radio quickly. I thought I heard something there. Sorry, station, what was that update for Cheetah Cutline? Copy, thanks. So those wild dogs that we saw this morning have been found to the north of our boundary. Bev in Durban and Whitney say, but isn't that a carnivore, Brent? Don't they count for your competition? They don't. The competition is for any mammal that falls under the order Carnivora. So the carnivores, so it can be mongoose, can be an otter, can be a honey badger, a cat, a dog, a hyena. So there are 22 possible species that we can get. I think James and I are each on 4, and I think it'll be very difficult to get any. And a lot of those species are going to be exactly the same. It's going to be an interesting one to see what is the kicker. It's going to be a chance sighting of a honey badger or serval or something, and I think will lead to the winner of that carnivora competition. I'm just going to check now down towards Zoe's road. So I'm going to be concentrating on the road for a little bit, make sure I don't miss any tracks. So it doesn't look like she's come down towards the water. She might be heading to the north. It also pays to check all these termite mounds. She might have just moved off a little bit to have a snooze. So while I check very carefully for tracks here, a warm SafariLIVE welcome to Bethany, who's in Virginia. Bethany would like to know if we've got any species of fox here. We don't, Bethany. We have jackals, which is probably our closest relative of the fox. There are some indigenous foxes in Africa. And in southern Africa, in the dry and arid regions, we have 2 species. We have Cape fox and bat-eared fox, and then the next fox species are up in North Africa. Fennec, desert fox, sand fox, but none here at Djuma. Karula, where have you gone? So while I search for Karula with Tebs, the master leopard spotter, let's go see what Commander Bond is up to.
Right, we are now going down. We gave up on the dogs, I'm afraid. Mainly because they've been found north of us in Verreaux, so we can't go and see them. So we're now going to go and see the hyena den, which is my default place to go and visit when I'm feeling bereft and need some cheering up. But let's just chat a little bit about these mistletoe plants as we drive along. Now, apparently there is a species of mistletoe, and I don't think it's this one, that has a milky latex in it that you can chew and then wrap around a tree, and a tree limb, especially over water, and if a bird comes and lands on it, they get stuck. And then if you're particularly hungry, you can then eat the bird. If it is a blue wax bull, you'll need probably several dozen in order to make a meal. I've never done that myself, but I believe kids out here have been doing it for many hundreds of years. Right, so that's one thing about the mistletoe. Then I wanted to ask you all, the tradition of having a smooch under the mistletoe, where does that come from? I've got absolutely no idea. So perhaps you can let us know. Hashtag SafariLIVE, questions at wildearth.tv. Let us know. And in the meantime, we'll drive towards the hyena den. Aged 8. You say you get very nervous when I climb the trees and you get afraid. Don't worry, Gracie. I've been climbing trees for many, many years. And so I'm very careful. And I won't take any risks. And well, I'll try not to take any risks. It's always a little bit of a risk. But I don't I'm not taking any big risks. Don't worry, Gracie. I think it probably looks a lot higher on the screen than it actually is. They're not actually that very high. So don't worry. Thank you for worrying about my safety. Andrew didn't worry at all about my safety. You know? He just watched and laughed. I can't wait to see these. Thank you all for making your Brent and Sasquatch Photoshop pictures and tweeting them. Thank you very much for that. I cannot wait to see them. I wondered if anybody would actually do that. I'm amazed that you have. Brent the Summer Sasquatch. Probably the only ex-underwear model to ever be called a Sasquatch before. And I mean that in all seriousness, of course. Brent is a very fine-looking gentleman, as I'm sure you appreciate. It wasn't too long ago that he was strutting the catwalks of Milan, dressed in nothing but a pair of cotton briefs, if you can believe it. Nobody's ever asked me to do that. I don't know if he's ever told any of you that. I mean it entirely as a compliment, after having been so nasty to him.
Michael, where are you from? Karamanji.
Right, we're not far from the dam now, and just before we descend into this valley here, I'm going to turn the radio down. Just look at the sun there, and you can see it's actually, as Andrew says, it's quite pale. It's a sort of pale golden colour. It wasn't quite how he described it, but I won't say what he said. It's just a quite pale gold. It's not that sort of blazing orange and ginger that we normally get out here. I think it's quite nice. Andrew wasn't quite so complimentary about it. Apparently the tradition of the mistletoe hanging in the house goes back to an ancient Druidic tradition. Thank you very much for that. And the tradition of having a smooch underneath it goes from a Norse tradition, an old Norse tradition that I think meant friendship, something like that. Thank you very much for that, Ellen. It makes a lot of sense. My parents have a scraggly plastic piece of mistletoe because, you know, it doesn't really grow much other than in an area like this. And they stick it up in one of the door frames every year. And once a year, around the 20th of December, which is their wedding anniversary, they can be found having a cuddle under the mistletoe, which if their children is just slightly disturbing, but if you're not, then obviously it's very sweet. My parents have been married for 46 years, if you can believe it. 46 years. That is a very long time to be in the company of one other human being. Hats off to them. a much more saucy answer from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you say that the mistletoe is an ancient pagan rite of sort of fertility and sexual prowess, and the colours of red and green that they were represented. I'm not going to go into the full details of what you've sent through. This is obviously a family show. And thank you for that, Jeffrey. So, and that's why people kiss underneath it. That sounds quite intriguing and would make sense, of course, for the time of year that we hang it. 25th of December, of course, was not really the actual birthday, apparently, of Christ. But that's a discussion for another time. Right, let's go into the hyena den. I believe while you were Sasquatching a picture of Brent Leo Smith, you missed seeing a new bird. Which bird was it, Gerda? I'll try and find it for you. I imagine you have most of the birds already, though. There seems to be a huge amount of action going on at my favourite part of the reserve at the moment. Sad. I wonder if you see any hyenas anywhere? There's one. May is here. Oh, there's his Corky. Hello, Corky. How's it going? Here is May. And babies. High action here. High action at the hyena den. That's not Corky there. That's a very beautiful hyena. I'm not sure if that's the... It can't be pretty either, because I don't think she'd be lying there. There is Corky at the back, and there's D1 or D2, I'm not sure which. There's D1 or D2, I'm not sure which, coming out as well. Wonderful, the twins. And certainly anybody who has any idea how we can sort of best identify these two youngsters, I think it's going to be very difficult until they get their spots, but maybe if you've got an idea. I certainly couldn't tell one from the other at this stage. That's sweet. Oh, and there's the... Look, there's November as well. Look how many spots she's got. Every day she gets more spots. Every day she gets slightly more spotty. Oh, she's gone back inside. Maybe this is pretty then, sitting there. I mean, she certainly looks very gorgeous, that hyena. And maybe that is the mother. There's some movement off in front of us. Not sure what that is. Ah, it's a beefalo, Andrew. We were driving along towards the hyena den earlier. As we were driving, we said the one thing that there's no shortage of, this was just after we heard that they'd found the wild dogs, one thing there's no shortage of is buffalo bulls here at Djuma. Anyway, he's through there. We can just hear him grazing through the woodland. And D1 or D2 is just sharpening her teeth now on a bit of stick. There's the buffalo. You can see his horns. Look at the little hyena watching carefully. Look. And now bored of looking at buffalo, like many people get, and is now chewing a stick. We had an extensive discussion this morning about play behavior and its importance for mammals. And of course, this is precisely what we're seeing here. Especially for a hyena, that chewing is so important. Now, let's try and see if we can get a sex on this one. What you want to look for is whether there is a pinched end to that penis or pseudo-penis. I think that's a little male. So
these twins are probably one male and one female, or two males. This one's definitely got less hair on the face than the other one. But whether that situation will last, now this is interesting. Now, and I've just read about this, that even though that's not the mother, remember that one, that little one is suckling from is not the mother, because D1's mother is more dominant than November's mother. Pretty will accept being suckled from, but the same will not happen.
So we just got those ground hornbills and they just took off and disappeared. Unfortunately, we're still in search of, the Queen of Juma. Done another loop around this block, no tracks coming out. I'm gonna gander at the water again. I mean, she's full, it's been hot, and it's the closest water to her. So let's go have another look around Treehouse. So while we do that, let's go back to the hyena den.
So very good call there by Louise to just quickly nip across to those ground hornbills and so watch them flying. What I was saying was, I'm not sure where you went across there, but what we have here, of course, is a dominant female on the top of the mound. That's Corky, and then back in front there's Pretty. And we watched Corky's cub come to Pretty and try and suckle, and that does happen with slightly subordinate females, that more dominant females, the youngsters will suckle from subdominant females. Now, you can see November coming out there. She won't go near trying to suckle from Corky. Well, that's what the books and the papers will tell you. And whether that's true or not, we'll see. But certainly it is borne out by the fact that normally or often when Corky is around, November doesn't come out of the hole at all. This is wonderful. We never see them all three like this. Isn't it sweet? She's so pretty. This is just wonderful stuff. This is priceless learning. It's priceless, kind of enjoyment. You see a magnificent little thing? I think we can actually see them now. Thanks, Andrew. I thought night had fallen. Kathy in Tennessee, you're absolutely correct. We don't see a huge number of male hyena around. That's because they don't hang around the den. And they don't, they're subordinate to all the females. They get absolutely no advantage from being around the den at all. So it's better that they go off in twos and threes and go and forage on their own. They do have a hierarchy, but there's no benefit for them being at the den here. So that's why you don't see them here. Shh, Andrew. Andrew.
Sorry.
Now, I can't tell the difference between those two. I suppose one's got slightly less fur on the neck, and they're going to have to go a long way to beat the looks of November there. November definitely inherited her mother's looks. Let's hope that these two haven't. And now, look, precisely what I said wouldn't happen is now happening. Except that's probably more a greeting ritual. Yeah, look, you see? As soon as she even sat up and looked. And there's May snoozing away. And we've seen May's mother. Oh, here comes another one. That looks like a yearling, a year old. Now let's see if this is a male or female. I think it's a young female as well. Greeting the dominant one first. Paying tribute to the dominant's kids. Now this is a typical greeting ritual. That's a male. That's definitely a male. There you can see it's pinched there. The penis is pinched on the end. Definitely a male. That's fascinating. So as I've said, the males don't spend too much time around the den, which they don't. That is definitely a male. Sorry, Wendy in Florida, I know you just asked a question, but unfortunately I've missed it. I'll get it again from Louise. Now, Wendy in Florida, you want to know how many different kinds of vocalizations hyenas have? I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, they've got their whooping call, they've got their cackle, which they make around sort of territorial disputes and to G each other up, that kind of laughing cackle that they make. And they've got that growl that they make slightly when they're a bit alarmed, and that sort of soft call that they make to call the youngsters out of the den. So at least 4 or 5 different categories of call, but you know how those are split up into different categories, I'm not sure, Wendy. Good question. So a thorough greeting now from the male. And I think he's a yelling male. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be here. You can see he's young just by the condition of his fur. He's still quite fluffy. Fascinating stuff. Right, we're going to sit right here and see what's going on. Let's head across to Brent. Oh, sorry, before we do that, Andrew, look at the kingfisher here. Just in this closest, most scraggly tree. Beautiful. Look at that pygmy kingfisher. We were chatting about that earlier. Insect eater. And it lives inside the hole from which those little cubs have come. Let's go and see what Brent has to show us. I think he's going to show us a picture of that pale golden sunset.
So we're just sitting on the treehouse waterhole, hoping that Karula might be moving this way for a drink. So, and the beautiful African sky behind, sun setting, so the leopards should be on the move. So we're going to sit here quietly and listen. Hopefully we get an alarm call, or she just pops out of the bush to come for a drink. But while we sit here and wait, let's go back to James, who's with the hyenas.
And as you arrive back with us, they are starting to vocalize, especially this dominant one, Corky. I don't believe she's the matriarch. I think May's mother is the matriarch, but I might be wrong. Now, the textbooks will tell you that they don't cross-suckle. We've watched D1 and D2 suckling from Pretty. We've watched November attempt to suckle from Corky, so you mustn't believe everything you read, I guess. Them all running around. Rachel, I agree with you. You're in South Dakota watching. You say, when will the cubs start to get the mohawk, the beautiful mohawk? Well, look at, there's November. Hers has just started now. And she is or she was born in November, so she's just about 8 weeks old. I don't know what they're going there, what they're doing there. So she was born at the beginning of November, so I'm pretty sure she's 7 or 8 weeks now. Look. Jean from in Los Angeles, you reckon you've seen a white mark on one of D1 or 2's right front paw? Rear left paw. I got it completely wrong. Rear left paw, is that a marking or do you think it's detritus? Let's have a look. I'm not sure. There seems to be some disciplining going on. Maybe it's a sort of supper time and they're trying to feed the kids, give them a bath. You can just hear the soft noises. You're right, Dee. You're right. Dee, there's the little white patch, well spotted. It is a little white sock, or not sock even, little sort of toenail painting. Good, now we can identify it. Let's call that one D1. And D2 doesn't seem to have any white sock at all. Brilliant, well spotted, that is incredible. Telling them to go and clean their room, have their bath and get ready for bed. This is just brilliant. I couldn't tell you what's going on here. I don't know. I don't understand. Well, that's D2. No white mark as far as I can see. Question, Julia in Houston, to which I don't really know the answer, but I'll have a guess. Julia, you want to know what would happen if a hyena cub chewed on a tambuti stick. Now, tambuti sticks, for those of you who don't know, are particularly toxic. The buffalo are running away for some reason at high speed. I've no idea why they'd be doing that. These hyenas pose almost no threat to them whatsoever. They have taken off as if they're being chased by lions. I don't see any lions around, though. Julia, I think that you'll find, even though, of course, the tambuti is very toxic to human beings, I think you'll find that... I think you'll find it would make no difference to a hyena. I think their digestive systems are so powerful that I don't think it would make any difference. They might get a little bit queasy, perhaps. They've all come to look what's going on. The buffalo have just disappeared. I mean, they got quite close. They were probably within 30 meters, 100 feet or so. And there goes Pretty to go and investigate. Gail, you're in Salem, Ohio, and you want to know if maybe this male might be offspring of the matriarch. It depends who the matriarch is. If the matriarch is Corky, then no, because the There's another hyena calling there. The cub is too young. And if the matriarch is, who I think it is, the scar-backed female also, no, should be too young. So I don't think it would be the matriarch's offspring, no. There's a whole lot of calling going on just down in the drainage line where they're heading, and the fact that May is heading off there indicates to me that there might even be a secondary den there, and maybe that's her mother calling. The little ones have poked their heads out quite interestingly, and without the adults here, that's unusual. There, that goes. Look, having a look around. They were having such fun, and now the game's over. Oh. That's very sweet. So they've all gone, they've all sort of in there. Classic. Ellen, you're in Arkansas, and you want to know if the greeting, here goes number 3 now. Go on. Go, November. Go, girl. It's so cute. So Ellen, you want to know if they smell the same as their parents? If the little ones smell the same, and maybe that's how they know each other from that genital smelling. Yeah, there probably is a similar scent, and I'm sure once they get to know each other, there's definitely a familiar scent, and I'm pretty sure that is how they identify each other. I'm sure. They look pretty different too, and I think their eyes and their recognition. I nearly said recognition software, but that's basically what I mean. Their ability, their brains, the ability that their brains have to recognize each other is probably pretty strong. So I think it's probably visual as well as olfactory. Nice question, thank you. Right, well, everything seems to calm down here. Let's just sit for another 5 minutes. And see what happens, and then I think we'll pull out of here. So there we go. Janet, you are in Canada, and you have read that it's been discovered that hyenas can make 14 different classes of calls, not just the 4 that I mentioned, and that within those there are many different kinds of calls. Yeah, thank you. I think they've got a pretty complicated language, and I suspect if we actually had an inkling as to how complicated it was, I think it would probably be a lot more than just those 14. Calling into the drainage line there, there's definitely something going on, and for them to have taken May down there with them, given that she's a little girl at this stage, that is very interesting. Anyway, all is peace now. Baby, oh, did you see that? The little kingfisher came straight out of the hole where the hyenas were living. Yeah. Straight inside there. I would so love to have a little camera in there where we could see what those kingfishers are nesting. Let's see if it comes out again. I just want to sit here for 2 more minutes and see whether anything happens, if they bring some food back or what's going on. There might be a secondary den. And there's still a little bit of howling coming from inside there. And you know what? The other day when I was driving along and we saw what looked like, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, an aardvark's tail being carried by a hyena. I didn't think they were heading back here. I thought they were heading maybe more towards where that calling's come from. So it might be worth having a walk through there tomorrow just to see if there isn't some kind of secondary den. There's a nice drainage line in there, so maybe that's what's going on. Alrighty, I think that's it for our hyena den experience this afternoon. Very good hyena den experience it was. The little ones have gone down into the hole. The adults have gone off for a drink at the pub. We're going to head out of here now, and yeah, we'll see what else we can find in the time we have left. Watch the aerial, everybody. Watch your heads. There's a horrible sound. We are going to need to reverse all the way out here. So turn around and keep looking. Right, let's go across to Brent so that you don't have to watch me in this precarious position. Let's see what he's got to show you, and I will see you at the other side of this.
So we heard a single snort of an impala, and normally they will carry on snorting, but we've driven to where it is. There's some impala around us here, and they seem to be quite focused on this area here, so I'm sort of hoping that Queen Karula is around. There's another snort there. I think they've just smelt something. I think they're just being a bit paranoid. This is the exact area where Karula walked through this morning, so they could be smelling her scent marks. But, okay, on that note, let's head back towards the well-beaten road. Well, hopefully we'll be able to find her on the sunrise safari. Looks like she's managed to disappear. There was only a gap of about 20 minutes when there wasn't a vehicle there. And no one has seemed to find her. And unfortunately, we're the only one who's been looking after everyone else went through there earlier today. And another big hopeful for tomorrow's sunrise is hopefully those wild dogs come back from Buffalo's Hook back to visit us. Be nice to have them around again. But it has been a glorious sunset safari. You got to see James behave like a vervet monkey up a marula tree. We found what seems to be an effective fly repellent in dwarf wild sage. There we go, back onto the road. Who knows, maybe the Queen will just pop on the road in front of us. Maybe she'll come visit quarantine. Keep an eye out in the Djuma Dam camp tonight. Maybe she's headed that way for a drink and has taken a rest halfway. I just absolutely love this time of the day. This and the early morning are definitely my favorites. You could say I'm a fan of the crepuscular. And for those of you not sure what crepuscular means, it was actually a word referring to predators. And I am a fan of crepuscular predators. But more so, I'm a big fan of crepuscular predators, and crepuscular means most active at dusk and dawn.
Look at that, everybody. I heard it calling. It is a giant eagle owl, the biggest owl that we get here. I was talking about them this morning. And you can hear the drongos going crazy all around him. That's him making that call, which means it's either a female or a juvenile. Isn't he magnificent? Sorry, now I could get into the clear, but I think if I go forward, he's going to fly. So I heard an adult going, oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. That's what the adult males sound like. The drongos are bombing him, of course, because he's a predator. Just remember, the one thing that I always have to remind myself is those two ear tufts that you can see are not ears. Of course, they're just kind of decorative. And the ears are situated under the, or behind the eye balls on either side there. You can see that pale patch there, that's where the ear would be. And they're off-center, so they're offset. One is higher than the other, and that means that they can judge distance using sound. So the owl is probably about 2.5 feet tall, maybe even 3 feet. No, probably 2.5 feet. I'll actually check that out for you. So it's a huge bird. I don't think it's quite as big as a great grey owl, which is the biggest owl in the world as far as I'm aware, but it is almost that size. Let me find exactly how big he is. He's a magnificent fellow. He is 60 centimeters, yes, so 2 feet. 2 feet tall, just over 2 feet. 60 centimeters, just over 24 inches. And watching the drongos dive bomb him. Very mournful sound there. And he will go off and try to eat probably a few rodents this evening. Look at him looking. That helps him to judge distance as well. That moving the head around from sound and from sight will help him to judge distance. So we've only got about 2.5 minutes left, so we're going to stay with this little owl, well, the huge owl, and see what he does, see if he doesn't fly away. I say he simply because to say he or she every time I have to refer to him would be irksome to me and probably to you. Could easily be a female. But I think that's more the call of a juvenile. Looks like he could take off at any stage. Huge claws, massive claws there. And unlike the eagles, this is a bird that has 2 claws to the front and 2 to the back, as opposed to 3 front and 1 back. I think that means that they come from a slightly more ancient lineage. In fact, quite a lot more ancient is the lineage of the owls. Same as the woodpecker, cuckoo, the non-passerines, as it were, the birds that are not traditionally known as songbirds. See him judging distances there all the time by moving his head from side to side. Gentle breeze blowing through the tree there. Lovely atmosphere, all very peaceful. Okay, everybody, that's going to be it from us, as it were. A big thank you to Brent Sasquatch Leo Smith for being filmed by Tebs this evening. A big welcome back in the final control to Jerry. Louise wasn't flying solo today. She had some help from Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Thank you to Andrew for putting up with my tree climbing antics today. And a big thank you to all of you for your questions and comments. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 0500 in the glory of the African dawn. Stay safe and happy. Until then, see you. Bye-bye.